Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations in the Future of Work. I'm your host, Rachel Cossar, and I'm really excited to invite two guests on today's show in a very special episode. And I'll turn it over to them to introduce themselves. Amy and Betsy, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am Amy Warshawsky, and Betsy Salkind and I, where should I start? We work together using improv as a framework for teaching coaching, communication, and leadership skills. We've been doing this together for a good 5 or 6 years now, and have known and been working together for 7, I think. And our backgrounds are a bit varied. Betsy is more of our improv aficionado, and I have a background as well as in coaching, also in somatic movement, and I use somatics in coaching and in the work that Betsy and I do. So really mind-body awareness interwoven into learning these skills. I think I'll pass it to Betsy from here.
Thanks, Amy. So I started out in organization studies and then quit and became a stand-up comic for 20 years, and then got into coaching. And the work we do now and our great joy is designing and facilitating experiential learning and growth opportunities. And we really feel like, and the data backs it up, that when people are having fun, they learn more, and when they are actually doing versus reading or talking about or watching, then they're going to that's the kind of learning that sticks. And so that's what we do.
That's wonderful. There's this great quote. I'm sure you know of it, and maybe you use it because I think we have some mutual connections in the coaching and facilitation space. But it's like, what is it? It's like, tell me I forget, show me I understand, involve me, and I can't remember the last part of that quote. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but I definitely get the concept, and I think the last one involved me, and I can do it.
Yeah. Show me I forget. Yeah. Oh, it would tell me I forget, show me I remember, involve me and I understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's anyways, but no, obviously we're all for experiential learning. I think the interesting thing with experiential learning is typically it'll be focused on that like workshop in the moment human facilitated component. And at Virtual Sapiens we're always curious about like what happens next and how we can support that with our AI role plays and practice and feedback. But Betsy, you set us up perfectly for this first topic that I wanted to focus on with you all, which is in your work, particularly because you have such unique perspectives and you bring such interesting backgrounds to the table, and the fact that you're working with pretty traditional corporations, right? How do you introduce, pitch, win over people's hearts and minds when it comes to the concept of play, when you're otherwise speaking to people who maybe are more rigid metric focused in terms of their leadership?
Well, I think I might point to, there's a ton of research showing the effectiveness. And it's kind of goes beyond play, but it's really getting into the positive mindset, into a place in our minds and bodies where where we're not self-conscious. We're not thinking about, am I doing this right? Am I going to get punished for doing this? And we move into a space where new things become possible. And that is what every company wants, is for their employees to be in that space and to be innovative and creative.
I'm also thinking that many of the leaders that I know that might fit the description that you gave, Rachel, they are playing somewhere in their lives. So whether it's in sports, in some type of form of engaging in entertainment, or some people play instruments or, from their past, or playing gaming on the computer. And I think that when you make that connection or help them see the parallel, that if they bring some of what they love about that into their professional lives, there's great benefit, which Betsy described.
Right, absolutely. Do you ever meet resistance though when people are like, yeah, but that's like my personal life and this is work and work is serious and like a compartmentalization, if you will?
We haven't actually encountered anyone who has resisted the idea because it's never just purely play. It's play with skills development in the design. But I think with virtually every company we've met with, we ask them because we design specifically for each company and what their team needs. They, I think every single time they've said one of the aspects they want is fun. And we don't even describe what we do as fun,
Yeah.
although it is, because that seems to be missing in a lot of workplaces, and it's a component that I think, especially now that we're more hybrid and remote, the opportunities for fun within a group are more limited, and so they want to bring that, have that be a part of the experience. For I don't know, what do you think the reasons for that are, Amy?
Um, I think people really are looking for community and to be engaged and involved. And I'm also just thinking back to what you said, Rachel, about how what you're doing is supporting potentially what we're doing. And I think people, if they're starting out in a space and they're together and they're being invited in and the setup is done well, and then they understand that we're providing a structure, um, maybe it's not resistance, but sometimes people are nervous for sure. And so when we're designing what we're designing, we're offering them to, we ask them to come in and we offer them a way to come in that creates a low stakes situation. And then they can come in, they feel comfortable, they get that they can do this, and then they move through with less anxiousness or resistance. Um,
We just had somebody come to tell us 2 years after doing this work with us that it profoundly changed both their work and private lives, the way they show up. And so there's also that long tail of this work.
Yeah, what you said I think is really interesting, Betsy, around the leaders who you've worked with or the individuals who have been your partners in planning at client orgs about like I do you are you a little bit concerned when people are like, we want this to be fun?
Um, no, in a word, no. Because usually these are kind of rare situations where they're bringing their staff together. So this might be what at one point was an offsite or is an offsite or a retreat, so that it has something that they have done, and that's usually a component of it. But I think they also know from experience that those are the things that bond their group better and that sort of last. So I haven't felt that way, I have to say. I mean,
I
yeah.
also, oh, sorry, Beth. You want to? No. I also think that people come in and they're open to the fun. And what happens is they start out having fun, and then we bring something in that goes super deep, super fast. And that shifts the room, but when they're already comfortable, um, they're engaged already and willing to be a part of it, and then they see the value. Um, and if our work is associated with fun, I'm going to say it this way, and I hope it's okay that I say it this way. I don't feel threatened that people won't see us as serious.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, interesting. I know that particularly in this space, sometimes it's hard to move from, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but being like a team building, viewed as like a team building activity versus like a critical like leadership skill development training can sometimes be hard for certain companies to, like, I guess be taken seriously, but also be given the opportunity to demonstrate the real value that your work brings to the table. I remember a long time ago when I was in my training as a facilitator for Ariel. So funny. You probably know this person, but I won't name them. They were like, listen, at the end of the day, like, we come in, we do these amazing workshops. People love them. People get a lot out of them. We have wonderful, amazing, powerful breakthrough moments. But like, the client does view this as like a team building activity, right? Versus like, I don't know, some of these other trainings that are like critical and required and like every single thing. So that's kind of why I asked the question. I just, obviously it's great
Yeah.
if you don't run into that issue,
I'm going
but
to
I've
go
heard it from
back,
others.
actually. I'm going to go back on the idea that they all ask for fun, because they don't. Some of the time we're going in to do professional development, and it's very explicitly that. And in that case, um, I think the fun element is just the effectiveness of it. But that's not specifically what they're looking for. And yeah, so and especially those ongoing ones where we come in and we come back and we're doing different skills each time and we're kind of building a program. Um, it's just a little piece of it, but the main focus is that skill building.
Yeah, totally. Um, so we've already gotten into some like mindset shifting here, right? I'm curious how do you go about shifting a mindset from, and how do these terms relate to from corporate agility to theatrical improvisation and these skills that actors use that leaders can truly benefit from when it comes to how leaders handle workplace uncertainty and real-time decision making?
Mhm. You want to take that? All right.
Sure. I'm just looking because, okay. So I think that agility, when we talk about agility, it's treating um, the issue as a problem. And we have a problem we have to solve, and we need to be agile to do it. And when we're doing improvisation, um, change and the difficulties that people are going through, that's the state of being. It's being agile. It's learning the practices that are associated with being able to improvise in any given moment. So it puts the emphasis, instead of on the problem that has to be solved, it puts it on the way of being. So it reminds me quite a bit of coaching. Are we focusing on the what? Here's the problem. Ultimately, yeah, we need to get there for sure. But we want to focus on the skill set and the ways of being that enable us to handle any kinds of shifts or changes that are happening in a very fast-paced world right now.
The only thing I would add to that is um, we don't really think of it as theatrical improvisation, just pure improv. So whether that's applied to, I mean, that can be applied to anything, music, um, life. I mean, we're all improvising all the time. And the difference between the way we do it and the improv that we're all doing all the time is that we're helping people to connect to their um, ability to call on that skill at any point and their confidence that they actually are able to improvise.
Right. I think that gets to such, it's like an unavoidable part of life, is whether it's transition or change or challenge, right? And I think that also goes hand in hand with failure, right? Trying something and failing and having to regroup and think about a way through it. um, Amy, I really liked your positioning of that. like corporate agility as like a more issue problem focused approach, whereas improv as an underlying frame of reference or mind or skill set almost welcomes more opportunity in these inevitable moments that leaders are probably facing on like a daily, if not hourly basis, right? I think that's so powerful. I think it also makes me think of this next segment, because in almost inviting a mindset of, oh wow, like here's this challenge we're being faced with, what an opportunity, let's think through this and let's be creative and let's do all this stuff. Like in order to allow a team to do that, there has to be a good amount of psychological safety so that employees feel safe enough to experiment and iterate and push back and ask, what if we did, or what if that, right? And so do you spend, like, I would imagine that because in these workshops you've created a safe space, a container, and people can try and experiment and it's beautiful. So then how do you help people bridge what they felt comfortable to a degree doing in your workshops to like either their real lives with teams with members who maybe didn't participate in your workshops? Like how do you approach that critical piece?
We're very transparent about everything we're doing. So we really start out and explain what is the structure, what is the container, what are the rules, and these are things that can be used at any point. And I think one of probably the key one is rule number 4. Like there are no mistakes, there's just happy accidents. So one of the challenges in the workplace is that mistakes are punished more so than good things are rewarded often. And people are we're kind of designed to pay more attention to what's dangerous than what's possibly good. So deliberately going to a space where we welcome experimentation, where we welcome different outcomes, can be very helpful in that. And a leader can bring that to their team, even if the team wasn't in the improv.
Yeah, I was just writing a couple of notes because I'm thinking as Betsy's talking, I'm improvising what I'd like to say next. No, I'm kidding. But Rachel, you mentioned mindset, and Betsy's talking about really pointing to humor and laughter and also modeling. So part of what we also want them to do is before they walk away to talk about how can they specifically take this back into the spaces that they're working within and the challenges that they're working under. And so to take that conversation a step further than, wow, here's what I learned today. Well, how can you apply that learning in your specific area? And that's why also sometimes beyond the group improvisation, if you also offer coaching and the ongoing groups like Betsy talked about, but also coaching, you're helping people to continue to apply what they learned.
Right, yeah. I just think it's so valuable. I feel like it's, I was speaking with my husband the other day. He's in investments in the financial sector, and there are some of these wildly successful fund managers who, when you actually look at their track record, they've had some like unbelievable failures too, right? And I think that it's so common to get to that first failure, and either yourself or people around you are just like, well, that's like unacceptable, and therefore you're not going to continue, right? Or, I think there's this amazing, I don't know if you follow tennis, but I think it was Federer or something who said, like, he's obviously won an unbelievable number of, I'm going to mess up the terminology, matches, like the whole thing, right? The whole thing is a match, and then there are individual games within a match. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, I've won so many. I've already mixed up what you just said, but anyways, he's won many of these championships and whatevers, right? But when you look at each of the individual sets within that, it's like he's won like 51 and lost like 49 or something.
Yeah.
It was just this fascinating thing where like clearly he is a resilient he's resilient in failing and able to get up and start again and try again. But I think that a lot of people, and I think that generationally, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on if you've got cohorts of younger people, if they struggle more with failing or even receiving feedback than others.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. First, I want to just
Yeah.
stick with the sports for a second because, you professional baseball players are, if they're batting 300, so 3 out of 10 hits, they're doing great. So there are cultures in which it is built in, and there's a lot of interesting work. I think Amy Edmondson's doing a lot of work on failure and how to fail better, and so it is part of, I think, where companies and leadership is growing now, is starting to look at that because we've been in such a place of fear of failure. I'm going to let Amy talk a little bit more about young people because I think she lives with some also. Um, but we teach how to give feedback and how to receive feedback because that is not something that we are born knowing, and it can be very, very helpful, and it can also be destructive. So learning how to give and receive feedback is a critical part as well.
Yeah. Um, did you want me to speak to the
Yeah.
youth?
Yes.
I'm thinking, and I when I was growing up as Gen X, I was, we were accused of not being very, I would say, forward thinking. We were just kind of sitting around doing nothing. There were like a lot of stories about us. And I think there are lots of stories about subsequent generations. Young people, young adults and teens are actually some of my favorite people to work with, and early and in the 20s, as well as Betsy's. And that's where we both individually started out working as we started our coaching careers, and also Betsy with improv. And then ultimately had moved away from it, but we have this dream of going back to it and offering this through education. And I think that they're far more resilient than we give them credit for when we're looking at them from over here. So I have 3 kids, one's 19, one's 25, and one's 28. And they're all living here. We live in Hoboken, New Jersey. It's tough to go out on your own here. And I watch them. I witness their resilience, their friends' resilience, the way they keep getting back up. They don't always recognize it. So part of what I think the learning is for them to recognize how resilient they truly are, how they fail all the time and they get back up, and how there's like a grieving process that's associated with failure. And these are things that can also be learned through the improv process. We gave a course the other day. Wasn't my best moment as a facilitator. I had like a real blip moment. And, we talked about it afterwards. It takes me a number of days to sort of say, okay, what happened there? What am I noticing? How can I reach to Betsy to help me understand something I'm not understanding? So I think by normalizing that process and reminding people that just because there are, and I know you're not labeling them, Rachel, but because there are labels that are put on a certain group of people, there's still people, and there are still human beings who are functioning in the world, and in a tough world.
And I think that gets to the comfort in the person who's giving the feedback. So let's say a boss, in talking to and giving feedback. And it's what we've seen is that most people are aware of where they're missing the mark. They can beat themselves up more than you can. But what people often miss is what they're doing well. And so reinforcing that is a really important thing. And I think the coaching is a really helpful way of asking them, what did they notice? And really starting with that when giving feedback, and inviting them to share what they've learned, what they could do different, and really making it a coaching type conversation.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's really nice. I think that's really nice to hear. I think it's I think at least from what we see on our platform, like giving and receiving feedback are two of the main things that people are practicing.
Mhm.
Because to your point, if you are the giver of feedback, so much of the way you do that will impact the way it's received,
Mm-hmm.
right? At the same time, you can also be like a ninja receiver of feedback, and you're able to like take it and then process it and sift through it and understand what's valuable and what's not, right? And kind of move forward in that way. So everyone needs to work with you is the conclusion.
Well,
And I want to really say that I love this idea of support and practice.
Hmm.
So what you're doing is taking it one step further. And the more that we practice having conversations, the better that we get at communicating. And what we hope in our larger view is that by focusing in on these skills that help people truly be with and communicate with one another, um, that the world becomes a better place, because those are the skills that we need. It's the skills of nuance and really listening, and playing together, because kids most of the time work it out on the playground. We're still in the playground as adults. It's just a different playground.
a harder top, maybe. Um,
Yeah.
I have a quick story if there's time.
Yes, please.
Um, so I was given an employee to supervise, and came into our team and was definitely not at the level of everyone else on the team. And I was basically cataloging where this person was missing the mark so that we could fire them. And my boss said, "That is not your job. Your job is to develop them." And that changed everything for me, because then I started to see this person in a completely different light, and we ended up with an incredible working relationship, and it really changed. I realized that the person who's giving the feedback, if they come from that place of my job is to develop another person, it changes everything.
Yeah, that's I think a very important perspective, right? To
So
have
thank you
as
for that,
well.
Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Betsy. That's fantastic, I think, for people to hear and for us to finish on. As we close out, what are some of the best ways for people to follow your work, be exposed to your work, get in touch?
Hmm. So, we have a website right now. It's called BNA Mentor Coaching. So, bnamentorcoaching.com. We also have a book that we've written called Coaching with a Twist. It's improv for coaches, and then there's a whole subtext of how it applies to other areas for facilitators and leaders. Um, so both of those are wonderful ways. We're out and about on LinkedIn and love getting to know people. And we're often offering workshops in various locations, um, whether in person or virtually. We do quite a bit of this work virtually as well. So through our website is the best place to find us.
Great. Wonderful. Any last tidbits or thoughts before we say thank you and sign off?
Just really appreciate you having us on, and being able to share this work that I know you come from this background as well. And it's exciting to see how much of it is out there now, and that it's really benefiting people.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, the pleasure is always mine, and that of our audiences. So, Amy and Betsy, thank you again for your time and for being such wonderful guests and for your work. which is so important. And to our audience, as always, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.